Get down. You don't belong here. I own the place.
He had no idea. No idea that the man he mocked, the man he humiliated in front of hundreds, was the very CEO whose signature controlled $1 billion merger his entire wealth depended on. And in less than 12 hours, a single act of arrogance would turn Brad Collins, one of the city's loudest and proudest millionaires, into the most hated man in the corporate world. Before we dive deeper, welcome to Untold Voices, where real-life arrogance meets real-life consequences. If you enjoy stories like this, feel free to support the channel by liking the video and letting us know where you're watching from. Now, let's continue. Marcus Reed was a man most people recognized the moment he stepped into a room, but never because he demanded attention. He didn't need to. Marcus was one of those rare figures who carried quiet power, the kind of presence that spoke louder than any speech, the kind of confidence that came from surviving storms most people would never understand. Born in a small apartment in a neighborhood the city forgot about, Marcus built his empire from the ground up. First scholarship, first internship, first startup, until he climbed his way to become CEO of Reed Global, one of the major forces behind the future of renewable tech. He was brilliant, composed, respected, but also humble in a way that unsettled powerful men who relied on ego to feel tall. To many, Marcus was a symbol of what resilience looked like, but to people like Brad Collins, he was invisible, or so Brad thought. Brad Collins lived his life like every room was built for him. Born wealthy, raised wealthy, surrounded by people who told him he was the sun and everyone else was just orbiting. Brad was known for three things: his money, his ego, and his ability to destroy relationships without even trying. He owned several hotels, bragged about his business instincts, and pretended he understood the corporate world, when in reality he inherited everything from his father. He always walked with a glass in his hand and a smirk on his face, believing that as long as he was white, rich, and loud, the world would bend for him. And sadly, in many rooms, it did, until the night it didn't. The gala was supposed to be a peaceful night, a charity dinner hosted at one of Brad's hotels. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, soft jazz playing from a trio in the corner, smiles that felt more plastic than the silverware. Wealth has a way of covering tension like perfume covers rot, but everyone can still smell it. Marcus arrived quietly, a simple black suit, perfectly tailored. His presence alone made heads turn, not because he forced attention, but because power often whispers instead of shouting. Brad noticed him, but only vaguely, the way someone notices a waiter or a guest who doesn't look rich enough. Brad had already been drinking heavily. His laugh echoed too loudly, his stories too exaggerated, his confidence too inflated by wine and privilege. He stumbled near the buffet table, and that's where he bumped into Marcus. Marcus stepped aside immediately, polite as always. "Excuse me." Brad glared at him, the alcohol sharpening his arrogance. "Watch where you're standing." A hush spread across the nearest tables. People exchanged uncomfortable glances. Marcus didn't argue. He never did. He simply nodded and stepped away, but Brad wasn't finished. No, Brad liked an audience. He leaned closer, swaying slightly. "Where'd you get that suit? Looks a little too expensive for—" He didn't finish the sentence, but the tone said enough. Marcus didn't flinch. He didn't give Brad the satisfaction of reacting, and maybe that's why Brad escalated. With a sloppy grin, Brad lifted his wine glass, deep red, expensive, the kind of wine people brag about. Then he tilted it, slowly, purposely, deliberately. The liquid poured down Marcus's head, rippling like blood across black fabric. Gasps rippled through the room. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Brad chuckled, delighted with himself. "Relax, man, it's just a joke." But no one laughed. Marcus didn't shout. He didn't grab Brad. He didn't even wipe the wine from his head. He just looked at Brad with a disappointed, weary expression that said he had lived through moments like this far too many times in his life. In that moment, silence became heavier than the chandeliers above them. A woman rushed forward. "Mr. Reed." "Marcus, are you all right?" "I'm so sorry." Brad blinked. "Mr. Who?" And that's when the whisper reached him, loud enough to echo. "That's Marcus Reed, the CEO of Reed Global, the man behind the Redwood Tech merger, the deal worth over $1 billion. Brad froze. The color left his face faster than the wine had left the glass, because suddenly he remembered. The merger, the partnership, the future expansion. His board had been begging him for months. "Don't ruin this deal. Don't embarrass us. We need Marcus Reed on our side." Suddenly, Brad realized he had just poured wine on the most important man in his financial world. But Marcus simply said nothing. He gave Brad one last unreadable look, a look neither angry nor emotional, just finished. Then he turned and walked out of the ballroom. No shouting, no speech, no confrontation, just quiet power. The kind Brad never understood. At 11:58 p.m., while Brad sat alone at his table trying to convince himself it wasn't a big deal, phones began buzzing across the room. A press release from Reed Global. The Redwood Tech merger, the deal Brad's empire desperately needed, was officially canceled, effective immediately, due to a severe breach of professionalism within the partnering institution. Brad's heart collapsed into his stomach. He tried calling his board members. They didn't answer. He tried calling his lawyers. They were already drafting statements. He tried calling Marcus. It went straight to voicemail. Because Marcus didn't need to raise his voice to destroy an empire. He simply needed to walk away. By morning, the story spread everywhere. Hotel mogul causes loss of billion-dollar deal after public disrespect. CEO humiliated at charity event, merger terminated overnight. Brad Collins under fire for racist joke. Journalists dug deeper. Old stories resurfaced. Former employees spoke up. Business partners quietly stepped back. Stock shares in Brad's chain dropped. Banks reevaluated their confidence. Sponsors pulled out. Within weeks, the cracks became fractures. Within months, the fractures became collapse. The Redwood Tech merger had been Brad's lifeline, the deal that would modernize his hotels, upgrade operations, and keep competitors at bay. Without it, everything sank. Employees left. Investors revolted. Board members resigned. His reputation became a punchline. He tried blaming stress, alcohol, misunderstanding, but the world had already made its judgment. The man who once strutted through life, drowning in privilege and certainty, was now drowning in consequences. And the funniest part? The moment that destroyed him took less than 10 seconds. 10 seconds of arrogance. 10 seconds of cruelty. 10 seconds he thought would never matter because the man he targeted was just another guest. But Marcus Reed wasn't just another guest. He was the one holding the pen that wrote Brad's future. And with a single signature, he erased him. Months later, Brad attended another charity event, not as a host, not as the center of attention, but as a quiet, humbled guest sitting near the back. A waiter accidentally brushed his shoulder. Brad immediately apologized. Because Brad learned in the harshest way possible that power is not always loud, that arrogance has a price, and that the people you dismiss today may hold the keys to your survival tomorrow. Respect costs nothing, but disrespect, it can cost everything. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to support the channel. Share your thoughts, share your city, and share the message. Arrogance destroys, kindness protects, and karma always finds its way home.